Hey, welcome, my friends, to this week's captivating episode on Motivational Moments with Maria. I'm your high performance coach, Crazy Coach Maria. So thrilled and honored that you are joining in as you do every week. And this week, it's really special because I've got a special guest for us today that she's going to share her story and things that she has inspired others to do in their lives. But first, let's go back to the reason that I do this podcast. It is always my intent to provide you with some positivity, some inspiration, some motivation, because it is my wish that you experience all the joy, love, and happiness and positivity in all areas of your life. And it continues to make sure that I am obsessed about the research I do and studies on positive psychology and personal growth and personal development. So let's get on to today's show, today's episode. I have an amazing woman that is joining us today, and you can see her beautiful picture when you go to our YouTube channel. But I want to welcome to the show Karol Brown. Now, Karol is a special lady. She's a motivational speaker. She's an actress. She's an author of 2 books, and she is creating some amazing things in her life. And not only is she an author of 2 books, she just co-authored another book that we're working on a project together. And we'll talk about that as we move into the show. But welcome, Karol. I'm so glad that you can join me today on Motivational Moments with Maria. So welcome, Karol.
Thank you, Maria. I'm just excited to be here with you. I just love the whole concept of your podcast, and I'm pleased that you allowed me to be here to share my story with your guests.
Oh, you have an amazing story. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with your story, because it really is quite phenomenal. And we're going to share a little video with you in a little bit, but I want you to hear from Karol, her story. Boom, all yours.
Okay. Well, I live in the Seattle, Washington area. I'm from Ohio, Dayton, Ohio area, and back in '87, long time ago, my husband James and I, we moved to Washington State and to be in Seattle, where we heard it was such a beautiful place to live. And it is. If you've never been here, it's beautiful to come visit. Don't believe the stories about the rain. uh, so our children, 3 children, were raised here and went to school. I had a beautiful career with the VA hospital here, Veterans Hospital, and where I was a dietitian for 30 years. That's a long time to be in one place, but it was a good place to work. Um, while there, I had opportunities to have what they call collateral duties. That means that you were going to do things that were other than your job. And that made my experience there much more enjoyable because I got to be out and around people. For a while, I was the Federal Women's Coordinator, which is the person that brings women together to talk about women history, women veterans information. Then I was the African American Employee Program Coordinator. Part of my duties for that was Black History Month and Martin Luther King Day programs. So one year I was preparing for Black History Month. I watched Cicely Tyson with her excellent performance as Harriet Tubman. And she sparked my interest with a story that I had never heard before. And so I started researching Harriet Tubman. Maria, I found out so much information about her that I didn't know, and I figured many people had never heard of as well. One fact I didn't know is she lived to be 93 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, most people know about her time on the Underground Railroad, which is just a segment of her life. I was also very active in Toastmasters International Speech Program. And so storytelling was where I was focusing on in Toastmasters. So I decided to portray Harriet Tubman and tell her stories. And that's
Oh,
what
beautiful.
yes. So I started that in Later, my husband and I started traveling to present this program to schools, libraries, churches, businesses all over. Traveled all over Washington State and in Ohio as well. So I'm Harriet Tubman to many people. But along the way, I also learned that reading all the books about her, there was more to tell about her life. Um, and that's what I've done along the way as far as being a dietitian. But a few years ago, about 8 now, time really flies. In 2015, my husband and I returned to Ohio, to Dayton. That's where I was born and raised, and we were high school sweethearts and were together for many, many years.
Over 40, over 45, if I recall.
Oh my, over 47 before our life changed.
Mm-hmm.
My husband all of a sudden became abusive. I
Oh,
mean, I mean physically and mentally abusive. And I dealt with that as many women do for, oh, okay, it'll change. All right, you have an incident and then they make up and then it's fine for a while. But it got to be where it was not fine. And I felt my life I was losing my joy. I
losing your
wasn't
joy, yeah.
happy. I wasn't feeling the love that I felt I deserved. And my mother was living with me. She was 100 years old. She's 100. She just passed away in October, but 102, just 2 months short of 102. She was 101. But she was living with us. And one night I had to leave our bedroom for my own security. And that
For
was
your
the
own
night that,
safety, for your own safety and your own
my own
security, yes.
safety, yes. I heard my cry for help being answered. I heard the voice say, "Get out, get
Get out.
out,
Get
yes,
out.
get out."
And let me ask you a question. Get out. How many women and men stay in abusive relationships because they think there's no alternative?
Right. Yes. I mean, that is an issue for people. For myself, I know I had to find a way. I've always found a way to do the things I needed to do as far as I was concerned. My mother, I had run away to hotels before,
Mm-hmm.
but this was different because I had my mother with me and couldn't keep on doing that. So I had to find an apartment that could accommodate her who needed a walk-in shower, which was a little challenging, but we did it.
That
And
took some courage, didn't it?
it took courage, but Maria, when I got in my car, driving away, it just the weight just lifted off. It just lifted off my heart. I say in the book, I felt like I felt like I was light enough to fly. It was just amazing how much different it felt just to have made that decision that I needed to get out.
You needed to get out, and you did. And you've created this incredible life I know you're still doing your Harriet Tubman. I know you're doing motivational speaking, and I know you are doing work for all the young women and children of the world that need someone supporting them. Is that right?
That's my goal. So once
Mm-hmm.
I realized when I left, I wrote my second book about Harriet
Mm-hmm.
Tubman. And it was, let me share that, it's the Harriet Tubman Way.
The Harriet Tubman way. And there's lessons in there, aren't there?
Lessons. It's an inspirational guide to self-love, empowerment, and legendary leadership for girls. And this is for all girls, all age girls, because when you write a book and you get it edited and you reread it, I realized I wrote this for myself as well as the young girls. because we have to remind ourselves that how important it is to love ourselves. That was what I share Harriet Tubman's stories, that I feel that she couldn't have done what she did if she didn't first love herself.
Yes, I know. And in reading some of your book, I was touched by the stories that you were telling in there in the Harriet Tubman way. I mean, it was just like, okay, this could be any of us. This could be any of us that have struggled with self-worth, self-love. I mean, there's so many of us that we're not clear on how to do that.
Yes.
But the fact that you took that big step and studying her history gave you a pathway to keep moving forward and taught you some incredible life lessons. And
Yes.
speaking of lessons, what valuable lessons did you learn along your way?
The lessons that I learned are what I use in the book. First of all, I look at her life as, and for anyone who may not know Harriet Tubman's story, let me just review that a
Please.
little bit. Okay. So Harriet Tubman was born in Maryland about 1821. She was a slave. Her parents were slaves. She came from a generation of slaves. She knows her grandmother was straight from Africa. Big family. And she was known because she she freed herself. When she was about 25, she got married to John Tubman. Her name was Araminta. Araminta Ross was her name, birth name.
They called her Minta.
They called her Minta. She, when she married John, who was a free man in Maryland, there were quite a few African Americans who were free. She felt like she was almost free, and she know people go up north when they're free, a lot of them change their names. So she changed her name to Harriet, like her mother. So that's how she became Harriet Tubman. She is known from using the Underground Railroad, which was a system of people who knew slavery was wrong and wanted to help people. So they had a secret society. They called it the Underground Railroad. It was not a real railroad. It was not underground, but undercover, I would say.
It was undercover, right?
She first freed herself, but then she did what not many people would do. She went back for her family. Now, some people might have learned that she went back 19 times and rescued 300 people. Over the years, with more historical facts, I found it wasn't quite that many. About 13 trips and 70 people, which is still quite remarkable.
I mean, one person impacting more than 70 people because the lives that they created once they were free.
Exactly, exactly. And so that right there is, she also taught others how to free themselves. So there was another about 70 people that left that plantation because of Harriet. And she definitely changed her life. She didn't just bring them up there and drop them off. She took care of people. Later on, she had to travel, take people all the way up to Canada because there was a law that a slave owner could come up north and take their slaves back. So she took them out of country. She cared for those people there. She volunteered for the Civil War, where she was a nurse, a scout, and a spy. She led a gun raid there that freed almost 800 people in one day. Yes, first woman in this country to do that, to lead a gun raid. And her end of her lifetime after the war, she spent her time in Auburn, New York, where she cared for her parents and anyone else who needed a home that had no place to go. So she was in service all her life. So I also teach with this book the concept of servant leadership. So it's love yourself, let that love be your reason for taking actions in life. These are what I've learned. That empowers you to change your life and others. And then the support of a servant leader is someone who's first is dedicated to serving people, but end up being a leader because of that. and then she left a
Exactly.
legacy. She left
And
a
she left a
legacy.
legacy.
So that's what I
Exactly.
learned from her, and that's what I teach with her book and her stories.
Right. That's what you teach. You teach your stories, you teach the lessons, and there's some great lessons in there's courage, there's communication, there's commitment, there's risk take. I mean, there's so many lessons that you can glean from her stories, and you're sharing them. But if you would indulge me for a moment, what I'd love to do is people communicate differently, and communication is so important, isn't it? And so I'd
Yes.
like to share with the audience just a snippet of you playing Harriet Tubman. And it's one of the lessons you teach is on communication. So if
Yeah.
you will allow me to share that, I'd love to do that. So give
Please.
me a moment and we'll get that up.
Okay. Give
Go
you a little
back and do.
background. I'll give you a little background. So this video was done during the pandemic. When I wasn't able to go out and do programs, I was fortunate enough to get it recorded. It's in a real cabin with no heat but the fireplace
Oh,
that's
wow.
there
That's pretty
in
amazing.
January in Ohio. It was at a historical park, and my niece and nephew and my husband James are the other people in the program story.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so let me,
There you go. The YouTube.
there I go, right there.
Well,
There you go.
that was all right. But the church I really loved was when we had our own little secret church out in the woods, the campfire church meetings, and we'd be under the big bright moon and the beautiful stars and the invisible church.
If the camp meetings were secret, how did everyone find out about them?
Did y'all ever hear about the grapevine?
A grapevine? How do you communicate with that?
Now, did you ever think about some ways that you can talk that ain't talking?
I can just talk by texting. I mean, oh, you didn't have cell phones, and you couldn't read or write. Wow, that's tough.
That's right. You got to think about that. I'm sure you come up with some ways if you need to. You're right. I ain't never seen no cell phone before today. Well, so my daddy and his men's out in the woods, when they clear off a new spot, and that was a good spot for a meeting, then they let folks know about it. They sing the song, Steal Away to Jesus. Now, we learned that song in church. We ain't had no song books, and you know if we couldn't read it. And as we didn't know the words to the song, they didn't care, as long as it sounded pretty. Because they always thought that if their slaves was singing, that they was happy slaves. Because y'all know we couldn't just be sitting out there or working out there in the fields talking to each other, because we couldn't talk, because they always think we was talking about running away. If they was talking about me, they was probably right. But they love to hear us sing, because they say, oh, my slaves is singing all day. They some happy slaves. They just didn't know we some talking slaves with them songs we sang. Sure enough did. Brother Eli, would you sing that Steal Away song for the children?
Sure. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. My Lord, He calls me in the thunder. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here.
Okay, now that was a way to communicate. What was the message there?
So
What was the message?
the message is that you can be yourself and be creative. to get communication across. But it is important to be able to communicate. And you don't have to feel like you have to do it all in one way. I want people to understand that everyone's creative abilities are gifts and that they should be able to use that. So singing was a way of the slaves to be able to pass messages to each other. And the grapevine, which kids don't know that terminology so much anymore, is all about word of mouth, passing the word from one person to other. So communication skills are important, and they need to be, and along with that chapter, I talk about verbal and nonverbal communication. And then we have vocabulary words to explain what that will mean. And that is just part of what we all need to do and practice. And in my books, it's a curriculum, they're curriculums. So along with that, I encourage my readers to journal their thoughts. I give them discussion questions, and every chapter is a quote from someone that they may know. So just let me give you the quote for that particular story real quick. A quote comes from Nelson Mandela, actually, in this book, the chapter 16 in this book, Practice Communication Skills. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in a language, in his language, it goes to his heart. So I say that to say that to reach people, they don't all respond to the same long tone or language or the same person giving the message. That's why each individual's own personality is here to touch the hearts of somebody that resonates with them.
Got it. Yeah, it is. You have to speak to the heart, and you have to speak from your heart.
Yes.
In order to effectively communicate.
Yes.
Absolutely. So you are working on a project, because I can see it on your beautiful shirt. It's called Girls United by Love.
Yeah, this is my mission. This is my legacy that I hope to achieve. Girls United by Love is, well, for 2 years, when this book came out, I was looking for a beautiful way to launch it. I ended up having it wasn't a webinar. The first one was a live event on October 11th, which is the International Day of the Girl Child. And my committee included my niece that was in the video, and she's an artist, so she came up with this beautiful design. And we decided that this was a representative of what we're trying to do, is unite girls through love. So Girls United by Love is the mission. And this t-shirt is her art, which I dedicate any purchases from my store for this design. It helps her in her college career, going to college. She's still in high school right now, but her funds for college. And teaching girls self-love. Maria, my goal, my vision is that whenever you're in a room full of women, that they all love themselves. Now, can you imagine?
Can you imagine the power? Oh,
the power, the beauty, the peace, the joy, the lack of competition, the lack of jealousy, the lack of people being judgmental. And so that's what I do through this book and workshops, curriculum development, and teaching others to teach this program so that we can spread it around the world.
Exactly, because once you share that, it's like the domino effect.
Yes.
Right? You teach one, they teach another. I've always taught my children and my grandchildren, no matter where you go in life, always turn around, lift someone up, and help them.
Yes.
And they in turn, you always want to pay it forward, pay it backwards, any way you can. There's so much power in the power of love and the power of joy. Exactly.
Right.
Now, I know that you and I and 28 other authors are working together collaboratively on this book. Where's my book? I can't even find my book now, but you
I have
probably have
mine.
yours.
I have mine.
I don't even know where mine is. Live, Love, Prosper. Now, Live, Love, Prosper is a collaboration effort from 30 authors and authors who care. And what we're doing, and what you wrote in your story was it touched my heart. And each author wrote a story that impacted their life significantly. And what's really cool about this book is all the proceeds are going to the author's charity of choice. So let me just tell you, if you support Karol, she'll tell you how to reach out and get books from her. And you'll be hearing from me at a later date on how to do that. But all the money, all the royalties are going to charities of our choice. So what is your charity, Karol?
Well, I have a couple of different ones, but the main one is in the name of Harriet Tubman, I really like to support programs that help people get off the street, homeless people, to house homeless people. So Mary's Place is an organization in Seattle that serves to get families safe housing. And their slogan is "No child should sleep outside." So I mainly support that. I will be supporting some other organizations. I want to. I'm connected to like 3 cities here. Seattle is down the road. I live in Puyallup, and then I used to live in Tacoma. So I want to support organizations in each city, and I'm still working on the other 2. But Mary's Place is one of the main ones. I think what they do is so important, and I will be volunteering with them to work with women there, and hopefully getting the community around Seattle. You know, we have a lot of major companies and corporations here, and I hope that they will all see how it's going to benefit the whole community when we get more and more people off the streets.
Absolutely. Yes, it helps the community, it helps the people, it helps. The impact is significant.
Yes.
So kudos to you. You've got 2 great books, now co-authoring a 3rd book. You are continuing to share the story of Harriet Tubman and the lessons on leadership. I mean, absolutely. And the leadership lessons that are in your book from Harriet Tubman. She was a leader, and you said, and she was a servant leader.
Yes.
And sharing those leadership lessons is truly a gift, because she had courage, she had commitment, she had the consistency of going back and forth. She was just an amazingly powerful woman.
And there's some lessons that people don't realize with her. I point out networking. Underground Railroad was a network. Financial management. She knew how to hold her money together, and she would save up. She would work and save her money up for the trips back. Things like that people don't think about associating with Harriet Tubman stories. Like you said, give back. She went back and brought other people up. She taught other people how to do for themselves. And another thing people don't realize is she was a businesswoman. I was pointing this out the other day. During the Civil War, as slaves would run away from their plantations or were freed, well, the men joined up in the army, but the women didn't really have anything to do. They weren't taught to do anything but maybe pick rice or cotton or whatever. She would take the women in her cabin at night, and they would make sweet potato pies and berry pies and root beer. And the women would go sell that to the soldiers during the day. And Harriet would share the money with the women. She also taught them how to sew and clean the uniforms of the soldiers. So she was a businesswoman, and she taught other women how to be successful businesswomen, Pete,
So
too.
she had the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes, she did.
Long before we even heard of that word, right?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I always like to leave. I mean, I really appreciate you joining me today, and I gained some valuable insight in reading the book and reading about you, and of course, spending time with you because you are quite the amazing woman. And I always like to leave with something. Okay, so if a genie dropped down on your shoulders right now and said, Miss Carol, I grant you 3 wishes, what might those be?
Ooh, 3 wishes.
You get three
Hey,
wishes today.
okay. Well, Maria, I want to hit the lottery. Now everybody
Okay,
wants
hit the
that,
lottery.
right?
Hit the
Right.
lottery.
The
Okay.
big one, the $1 billion one, okay?
Okay.
And the reason is that I have plans for that money to change the world. My mission, I could spread it so much faster in so many different ways. So that money would be used to, so the second one is my business of having a cooperative business, the largest cooperative business in the world, where I have women who are using love to teach to the girls, love in their own different businesses that be supporting the concept of love in the world. And the third one would be my home here in Washington State, where I can look out at Mount Rainier and the Puget Sound and have a lot of great memories with my family.
Okay, beautiful. That's great. And because we all know a lot of people have a negative connotation around money, but money is good for the good that it can do, right?
Yes, exactly.
And the more you have, the more you can give back, the more
Right.
good you can do. That's
Yes.
exactly right. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, is the best way your carolvbrown.com?
That'd
That's the
be it.
best way to reach you. Okay, www.carolvbrown.com. And she can also be found on some YouTube channels, and I'll give you the link on the YouTube we shared in the show notes. But I really want to thank you for the impact that you are making on young girls, young women, adult women, and more importantly, I want to honor you for for having the courage after 47 years to love yourself and to vote on yourself and to pick you
Thank you.
to live your best life.
Yes, thank
So
you.
once again, Miss Carol, thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are listening, you know my message. Share this with people that you know that need to hear some words of encouragement and inspiration, because Carol has shared so many today. And until next week, my friends, stay focused, stay positive, always have fun, and no matter what you choose to be, do, or have, do it with passion. And I will speak to you next week, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.